sometimes even our own Latino community brings us down and puts us back into this small little bubble of. And the funny thing is too, is when you start to build success for yourself, people start to say you're not a real Latino, which is like, what do you mean I'm not a real Latino? And it goes back to the Latino stereotype.
Yeah. Seems like we have been conditioned to label people, put them in boxes, and then kind of construct a narrative around what we think we see and not have the curiosity, or not even have the eyes to see fully that whoever it is standing before us is so much more than what we see on the surface. Hello, welcome to We're the Leaders We're Looking For, a podcast from United Way of the Wine Country, produced with tech support and direction from Brant Hokinga and Tiv Branding. We are here to share the voices of our neighbors, change makers, and everyday leaders who are building a region rooted in belonging, resilience, and justice. And I'm Lisa Carreño. I'm President and CEO of United Way of the Wine Country. Thanks for joining us, and let's get started. This is part 2 of my conversation with Herman G. Hernandez, Executive Director of Los Yang, Sonoma County. I hope you enjoyed episode 1. We're going to pick up where we left off. Enjoy. What systems or narratives are you actively working to transform these days?
Personally, I have a narrative that I really want to change, and that's that Latinos are low income, uneducated, poor farm workers and hospitality workers. And don't get me wrong, all of those things are amazing and beautiful and what contribute to the Latino and the resilient identity that defines Sonoma County for everyone, actually, not just our Latino community. I mean, the people, our community's gone through some crazy stuff in the last 10 years. But like, one thing that really frustrates me is when even Latinos do this, you're not Latino enough. Or you drive a nice car, you're not a Latino. Or you own a home. Like, yeah, but that's not the Latino experience. So we're not allowed to have nice things? Or like, this is where I get very frustrated, is like constantly I'm hearing people say that Latinos are 3 things: immigrants, uneducated, and low income. Mm-hmm. But there are Latinos there's a spectrum, there's a Latino spectrum, and there's like people who are educated through the JC, educated through high school, educated through college, master's programs, doctorates. And we're still not seeing our community step up into leadership roles or properly represented in like government and nonprofit boards, elected officials, CEOs of organizations and nonprofits. So one of the things I really want to actively try to transform is the narrative of our Latino community. That we do bring value, that we are one of the strongest contributors locally to the economy, that we are educated, that we are starting to own more homes than we did 20 years ago. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sometimes even our own Latino community brings us down and puts us back into this small little bubble of. And the funny thing is too, is when you start to build success for yourself, people start to say you're not a real Latino, which is like, what do you mean I'm not a real Latino? And it goes back to the Latino stereotype.
Yeah.
Which, yeah.
I think to be seen, to see and be seen fully, like as individuals, and also, as you were just describing, the full spectrum of all of who we are. true for Latinos, true for other communities of color and other lived experiences. You know, it seems like we have been conditioned to label people, put them in boxes, and then kind of construct a narrative around what we think we see and not have the curiosity, or not even have the eyes to see fully that whoever it is standing before us is so much more than what we see on the surface. You know, I remember one of the conversations that Lucian hosted just after the pandemic. Community started to open up. We had a conversation with several Latina skilled agricultural workers. And the conversation was about what they experience as agricultural workers here in our community. As they answered the questions that were asked of them, what they revealed was so much more than I ever imagined would come out of those questions, because their answers helped me to see and hear and understand and really appreciate how they are guardians of culture, how they are stewards of practices that nurture a kind of oneness that leads to the harvest and the abundance and the bounty that we enjoy here, that is a foundation of Sonoma County's agricultural economy. Those women know the land, they know the plants, they have relationship with the earth and with the cycles of the earth. All of it. It was just like, oh my gosh. These women are evolutionary biologists. You know, they're farmers, they're artists, certainly they're providers, and they are builders, and we don't see any of that when we just see them day in and day out, you know, working in the fields or working in the vineyards. You know, so to see the spectrum of who people are fully, I think is just, I don't know, one of the most loving things that we can do.
100%.
Yeah.
Like being curious about, I remember you're talking about the February Campesinas program that we did, right? Yeah, that was pretty, I mean, all the farm worker series that we did, starting with the pandemic, when your honorable Judge Pardo was leading the program committee, like having the people talk, the actual worker, the person that's growing and tilling and harvesting the fruit and the flowers in our community, like hearing from them. That was special because I had never seen anything like that done on a platform that's as like mainstream as Lucien's. And it was a great opportunity for not just our Latino listeners to zoom into that, but also like our white community and community leaders. And then we continued the episodes, and you're right there. And that's what Almas Libres and like North Bay Jobs with Justice and a lot of groups that are trying to uplift the immigrant community are trying to tell everyone, is that they're like experts
Right.
in the field.
Right.
And we should be listening to them too, or giving them space to educate us, because we never give them space to educate the greater community. Maybe some of the bosses are some are learning from their employees, but like that was really special. That was very cool.
Agreed. How do you balance the part of you that wants to heal with the part of you that wants to resist?
Man, part of you that wants to heal versus the part of you. This is a hard question. I don't even understand it.
Well, so, and let me just, we can skip any question you want. And I should have said that at the beginning.
Your
I'm
answer
sorry.
is to that question. It might give me an idea because, like, I don't know if I understand it.
Well, so the questions, the questions have been inspired by a lot of Valerie Kaur's work with See No Stranger, the Revolutionary Love Projects, in her most recent book, Sage Warrior. And Sage Warrior is the story of, it's a combination of memoir and the story of the evolution of the early origins of the Sikh faith in Punjab, and the practices of becoming a sage warrior. The sage is the inner work that we do. So
that would be like the healing part.
Well, it's like, it starts with understanding, appreciating our inherent oneness with all that is, and the values that we embody and nurture in order to really genuinely experience that oneness. And the practices of being the sage as well as the warrior are the practices that make it possible for us to develop a resilient and courageous and faithful inner life, so that in our outer life we can show up fully as the human beings that we have the potential to be. Sometimes you get mad.
Mm-hmm.
And the part of you that wants to be, coming from compassion and kindness and love and inclusive belonging, is at war with, or maybe in conflict with, struggling to make peace with the compassion and the pain you feel when you witness harm, when you experience injustice, are really righteously outraged. I personally, I experience a lot of righteous outrage inside as I watch what is going on in our world these days. And the work, I feel like the work that I do in my role with United Way, the wine country, and also in the volunteer work that I do with Lo Siang and with Forget Me Not Farm and with Pepperwood Preserve Foundation and 10,000 Degrees and Community Foundation, Secure Families Collaborative, is all belonging building. And so I don't know where I strike my balance, but I suppose it, especially when I'm in righteous anger, it is in trying to build a stronger and stronger practice to ask myself, well, what is the opportunity in this right now? And and remind myself that this is an ultra marathon, and that I need to take care of myself and ask for help. And look upon myself and others and my opponents with curiosity and compassion, with kindness.
Yeah, that's a hard one for me to answer because I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I just realized I have these, I struck these from my master set of questions, because these have proven, this question and the one, what does it mean to fight with love and not against people, but against injustice, are questions that have proven to be really difficult, to answer.
This one for me is interesting because it just like doesn't, I don't know. I feel like I ignore a lot things that anger me, like almost like kind of putting them in another department in my mind and kind of just continuing to move forward, like what's happening nationally right now, and sometimes in our state, even locally. I'm so busy working on the day-to-day stuff that it distracts me enough to not get too far into being angry. Yeah. But I do get angry, I'm not going to lie. But I feel like for me, the way that I deal with anger and how I heal is actually by working and distracting myself, which is also not a good strategy if you are trying to avoid burnout. But it does help me to kind of move forward. And it kind of goes back to last year being a hard professional year for me and personal year. And recognizing that literally, I know this is cliche, but I had this out-of-body experience last year where I'm like, oh, all I can control is what's in front of me. I can't control anything else. Right. I can also control the way I react to things. I could also choose not to pay attention to things that are bothering me. So I feel like last year really reinforced the cliche of like, you could only control what's like in front of you, and you can control how you choose to respond to things. And I actually applied that last year, and that was something that really helped me get through some of the healing, I think I would call it. I wasn't resisting anything, I just didn't know how to approach it. And I'm like, the only thing I can do is actually, because it was stressing me out, it was giving me anxiety because it wasn't anything I could control. Right. And then I realized, I'm like, wait, it's nothing I can't control what's happening outside of my little bubble here in front of my computer screen. So I'm just going to do this and focus on this. And it is a way for me, I do acknowledge that is a way that I do get through hard times or situations, which might not be a good thing for burnout, but it does help me get through some of these hard times. Yeah.
Thank you. Who or what helps you return to love when you feel disconnected or discouraged?
Who or what?
Return to love when you feel disconnected or discouraged.
My dad. I did not expect to get emotional, but Big Herm, he's a good guy. He puts things into perspective. I wouldn't call him the best listener, as you know, he likes to talk, but he's really good at listening when you need him to listen. And he's kind of, maybe that's how I deal with some of these things that I can't control and trying to ignore them and move forward and work, because he says he likes to always use the term shine it on and like kind of ignore it. Focus on what you're good at. Focus on what you can do. Focus on where your energy is taking you. Focus on everything but whatever's discouraging you or whatever the issue is, you know? He's just a person that I call all the time for advice, and I'm not even asking sometimes for advice, but he gives it to me. So he's definitely a who. Magali, my coworker, is an excellent person who also helps me kind of navigate discouragement. In terms of feeling disconnected, I know like one thing that's really important for me and my sister is going to visit our family in Mexico. So like if we're feeling disconnected, like that's literally our battery charger, going back. And that's how we grew up, is going to Mexico every holiday and summertime and being with my mom's huge family. And that it's unfortunate that we don't have family here in the United States, but they are huge reconnector, reinvigorator, re-energizer. And what helps me reconnect, like the simple thing too to do is just meet with people and talk with people who are my friends. And in work, I consider a lot of people friends, and it's about being around people that kind of helps you get back on track and the relationship. But the relationship building. But my father really has always been that person that I call to kind of tell him what's going on, and then he gives me his unsolicited advice or perception, or not perception. Yeah, his own opinion about like, well, you should navigate it like this. Don't focus on the negatives. He's a very positive, optimistic guy. And he's very relationship driven. So he's an expert in relationship building. So I take a lot of his advice and I just listen to it, and it helps me get back on track. It really does.
That's beautiful. I love that. Love that. And not surprised. Thank you for sharing that. What does revolutionary love look like in action, in your leadership, your relationship, your community?
Man, I would say everything Lucien has been doing since its inception is, in my opinion, what I hope my leadership is like, because it's an inclusive leadership style and it's not turning people away that you disagree with. And I really, really think that's so important now more than it ever has been since Lucien's been around. I want to have relationships with people I disagree with. I want to be in community with people I disagree with. I think that's so important, and it's something that we're getting away from recently, especially with all the national politics and the Republicans versus Democrats. It's just been so frustrating to see that divide. I want to see people working together again. I want to see Senator John McCain's and Mitt Romney, people who are disagreeing with their own party because they know what the right thing to do is. I think revolutionary love is what Lucien's always done. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just what I understand about the revolutionary love theory, is more about like understanding, leading through compassion, trying to know somebody before you're making like these rash decisions, building relationships, bringing people together.
Yeah. What I've appreciated about this, the revolutionary love framework, nurturing compassion and belonging and loving and inclusive belonging for all the different parts of ourselves, for others, for people who are being othered, and also for our opponents, in the service of really creating a world in which we can, become and experience and embody our oneness. I think for me, when everything feels like it's closing in, to remember that feels like the next right thing to do. If I'm struggling with loving myself, being curious about the part of me that I'm uncomfortable with, that I'm meeting and feeling, like I made a big mistake this morning, and just meeting that with compassion and curiosity and love. Because I would do that if I were talking to you or my best friend,
Mm-hmm.
or, one of my team, So giving that to myself, and also giving that same loving care and regard to others. And, as you have said, making room for that for the people who might be my opponent, and being curious, lovingly curious. Don't make them wrong. Best advice my mother ever gave me 25 years ago: don't make them wrong. And settle down. Settle down.
Well, and Valerie uses the word opponent, right? Not
She
like
uses opponent.
enemy.
She
I
intentionally,
remember her saying that in the Soul Cup.
Yeah, she intentionally uses opponent. Yeah, because it
It's
creates
better,
space for conversation and exploration and dialogue and opening minds and perspectives and creating mindset shifts
Mm-hmm.
that don't happen when you define somebody as your enemy. It actually takes a great deal of courage and vulnerability to choose that. And going back to the question you asked me a minute ago about, hasn't that what Los Young's been doing? Yeah, actually, since the day I walked into the back room of Mary's Pizza Shack, that is what we've been trying to do. We have consistently been trying to create this open space for everybody to come in to explore whatever the topic is, or whatever the office is that somebody might be running for or representing, and breathe light and understanding into helping to create a bridge between where our body of thought is and knowledge and understanding is now, and where it needs to go in the service of improving our well-being, improving our community's resilience, improving our collective capacity to thrive, not just for some but for all. That is true. And we've had now hundreds of conversations about how we achieve that, and create that space, including very intentionally making the decision to be an inclusive organization when we were incorporating, and could have chosen a different path.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you choose when to be the sage and when to be the warrior?
The simple answer, I think, when to be the sage is when you're almost like a therapist and you're hearing people's challenges or issues and you're listening.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really important time to be sage.
Mm-hmm.
And then you take all the intel and information you're getting from all the different individuals you're meeting with, and you turn that into some sort of tool to be a warrior to try to change the system. It's not like scientific research, but it is like empathy interviews, and kind of with like what we did with our strategic plan. But when you're meeting with a lot of people who are involved in the community who might be afraid to speak up because they might lose their job, they might lose sales for their business, they might lose their volunteer role, or they don't know what to say on their board, I think it's important to listen and try to provide some advice and some strategies on how to like maybe work within what the issue they're experiencing. But then when I'm hearing people tell me things in confidence, I'm not gonna just blatantly say who said this and this is wrong, we got to do something about it. I kind of put everything together from the feedback and the information that I'm getting and try to, like, for example, like next year, Low CN, we're focusing on the education programs are going to focus on 0 to 5 to third grade literacy, because we know that still to this day, it's been 10 years, and you're familiar with Schools of Hope because it was a United Way program that really put third grade literacy on the education map. It was something we talked about all the time at SCO. And I remember Andrew Leonard, when he was the manager, he was doing a good job at going to the different schools and recruiting volunteers. I helped him a couple times out in Guerneville and Forestville, but because he was continuously doing that, he also was doing presentations. And I feel like SCO also was like third grade literacy. And then the pandemic happened. And I feel like since the pandemic and the closure of the program, we haven't really discussed third grade literacy. And it's still at an alarming low rate. So next year, we want to get more into being the warrior on third grade literacy and providing our platform in March and in SOCA to really continue to elevate the third grade literacy promise and how it actually starts in the belly. It starts when the baby is starting to form. So how do we bring in our partners who have all the intel and the information? And like, there's also like this weird 0 to 5 are not working completely in unison with like the educational K through 12. So it's like, let's bring everyone together and try to see if we can just spotlight it, because by spotlighting, like, change begins with a conversation on the Low CN platform. I like to use that as a motto, like change begins with a dialogue. And we got to bring back third grade literacy, because there's so many variables that are impacted to the success of the student as they go on to middle school and high school, and graduation rates and incarceration rates, the economic impact. So I've been listening to people in the community about third grade literacy who continuously bring it up. And I'm like, well, maybe we can do something about bringing that to our stage, and Low CN could be a warrior and just be like, hey, third grade literacy, it's at alarming low rate, and it impacts the Latino students and Black students at a much higher rate than their white counterparts.
You know, I have to confess that United Way of the Wine Country stepped away from funding Schools of Hope when we re-examined our business model. And we recognized that there were so many tens of thousands of households in our community that are struggling to make ends meet, that focusing our attention on economic security, family financial stability building was needed, because there was a need for a real champion focused on that. And when we talked with education leaders back then about committing all of our community impact resources to connecting people with the resources they need so that they could support themselves and their families, they said, if you do that, then the kids will have the resources they need to really focus on their schools, their studies. And at that time, there were many programs in schools to support literacy. And then we went into the pandemic. And, there's like all the presumptions and assumptions that we made about the resources that would be there dissolved. So now you have me rethinking.
Well, I didn't mean to. I was not saying anything about the United Way.
No, I know you weren't.
I was just giving
I'm just
actual props, because the United Way, when it was a program of the United Way, I felt like schools were paying more attention to it. But for a while, I'm like, what the heck is the third grade literacy? And then last year, there was a report that it was in the newspaper because First Five got the Measure I pass. And then after talking with Angie yesterday, kind of like another part of this whole third grade literacy, it's not just actual early child education and early preschool. There's also things that parents and businesses and the health industry can actually do to help increase the third grade literacy. And that was something that I'm like, I never actually thought about that Angie was talking about yesterday when we met to talk about First Five and how everything's going with Measure I. But I think that there is an opportunity for some sort of organization to take a countywide lead. And SCO has been getting superintendents and school districts and businesses to commit to the third grade literacy promise. But there's no program like the Schools of Hope was, where it was organized, you had volunteers, and you actually had like a curriculum working with kindergarten. I was a volunteer every semester. That was a fun one. But if you're reconsidering it, I think that's definitely
I wasn't until this conversation. We just have a few more questions.
Okay.
And so we'll try to do this. What kind of future are you helping to build, and what's your role in it?
Whoa. I'm gonna be specific. I want to see representation in Sonoma County adequately represent our ethnic community. We're a leadership organization focused on elevating the Latino community. And I would love to see over the next 5 to 10 years where city council and school boards, although school boards are doing a lot better in terms of Latino school board members, I want to see us more involved. I want to see us more engaged in leadership positions at the elected level. And I think we're starting to do that indirectly. And obviously we're a nonprofit, so it's nonpartisan. We'll start seeing that from people stepping up into nonprofit leadership roles and commissioner roles, because that's just the first step towards civic engagement. But I think that's the future I want to help build, is one that celebrates diversity in leadership and understands that having lived experiences of the community members that live in our community in leadership roles is only going to make our organizations and government institutions stronger and more inclusive and much better represented. My role in it, I'm just a cheerleader. I'm rooting for people.
Well, my sense of you is actually that you're more than a cheerleader. You're a coach, you're a manager, you're a facilitator. Yes, you're a cheerleader, and that's magnificent. But you're also a rainmaker. None of this happens without resources. And you're helping to bring all of that together in the service of that vision, which I think is beautiful. What's one lesson you hope others carry forward from your journey?
There's a quote that my dad has had on his desk for a very long time because I take full credit. I introduced him to it, and I think it goes something along the lines of do something you fear every day. And that kind of goes into what I've been saying throughout this conversation about putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, because a lot of the times, and be safe about it. I'm not saying go to a cliff and climb up a cliff. Like, I'm saying, like, do things that are safe in your professional settings or personal world that challenge you. Like, in order to grow, you got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. It helps you find your purpose. It energizes you, and you realize that you are capable of much more than what your mind is limiting you to. And one of the things that I feel like I learned that anyone could take with them is the learning from is the putting yourself in uncomfortable situations to grow.
Yeah, agreed. What's your message to others who are just beginning to awaken their own inner sage or inner warrior?
Patience. Because, like you said, it's an ultra marathon. And change takes time. And sometimes you have to listen. So you got to be the sage, listen and provide feedback. And then sometimes you have to take everything you've learned or everything you've compiled and be the warrior and use it as a tool to make positive change. Challenge yourself. But I think patience is one I'm still trying to learn. I'm not good at being patient, but I'm realizing now that I've only been as an executive director with LaSam for 3 years. I've been involved in the community for 10 years, but I'm noticing that a lot of the things that we're fighting for and trying to change for the betterment of our community it takes time. Yeah. And we have to be patient, and we can't let the first failure or the first loss deter us from trying again and continuing to move forward and push our community forward and uplift our Latino community.
Yeah, that's 100% right. In fact, one of the revelations that I remember experiencing along the way in my own journey was observing the resilience of others who had been warriors for decades. And when there was a loss or a failure or a setback, they were, taking in what happened. But they were doing it with a kind of knowledge, understanding, resolve that what's needed is a kind of passion and commitment and intention that just sees whatever that failure or loss or setback was as like feedback. It's just gas for the next leg of the journey,
Exactly.
Yeah. Fueling the next leg of the journey.
I like that.
That's awesome. Yeah. This is a closing reflection. What is one small thing you do or witness that reminds you that we were made for these times?
That's funny about this conversation is the questions that you've asked made me realize I am terrible at reflecting within my own life, because this is one of the first times I've reflected on a lot of things that I've experienced over the last 11, 12 years of being out of college. So I'm like, some of these are really hard to answer because I don't actually spend time reflecting. And like, I'm not a religious person, but I do like the quote of like, God puts things on your shoulders for a reason or something like. I totally paraphrased it, messed it up, but that's what helps remind me like of my purpose. It's like when I am facing challenges or times that feel overwhelming, I'm like, there's a reason why you're here.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like, my parents being very Catholic, they always kind of bring up God as like, God wouldn't be testing you if he didn't think you were strong enough.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of vocabulary that they use. And I do believe that does bring me inspiration and reflection. And I believe in that. I mean, I think the universe challenges those who are ready for the challenges. So don't give up and try to understand why you're being challenged and how you're going to overcome this challenge. But it does bring me calmness, reiterating that lesson.
Mm-hmm.
It brings you strength.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I am terrible at reflecting. I like just keep moving forward. That's a lot because of the way I grew up playing sports. It's like, let's move on to the next game, celebrate, and then next win, next win, or next loss.
I don't know. I think I see you growing in your curiosity and reflection as you get older, as you mature in the role that you have. You are mining your past lived experiences, and as you said in other questions, earlier in our interview, they help inform the things that you know now, the practices that you have now, that discipline that you have, that ability to focus that you have, that willingness to be in discomfort. That all comes from reflection, not just doing. That's not empty-headed doing by any means. That is the opposite of that. That is actually building muscles. That's your summer workout.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, folks, thanks for listening. We're grateful that you've joined us in community today and that you believe, just like we do, in the importance of building belonging, resilience, and justice in this region. We know it will have ripple effects across the state and across the country and around the world. So your presence is really meaningful, and we're very grateful for it. If you'd like to get even more involved with the work that United Way of the Wine Country is doing, please join us. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow us in social media. You'll find us in Facebook, and you'll find us in LinkedIn, and you'll find us in Nextdoor. We're banned from Instagram. I'll leave that to you to figure out why that might have happened. Sign up for our newsletter at our website, www.unitedwaywinecountry.org, and share our conversations with a friend. Feel free to have the same conversations that we're having here with your friends. The more of us having conversations like this, the more we'll all appreciate that we are the leaders that we're looking for. And we're just looking for a place to get started. Thanks for starting here.